great session here. So without further ado, why don't we introduce our panelists. Doug Chavez, come on up. Doug is pinch hitting here this morning, so thanks for making time for us. Erin Simino, SVP, Digital Mobility at SMG. And then Stuart Meyler, Principal at Beeby, Clark+Meyler. Nice and bright, yes. So, our panel topic here, we're going to hear from agency gurus on how to achieve app enlightenment and seamlessly integrate apps into your marketing plan. So we've had a chance to chat a little bit before the panel, and I think some folks in the audience might read this topic and include how am I going to create an app that supports my marketing plan. I think our panel here can cover that for sure in spades, but actually has a bit of a different perspective because really the topic is twofold. There's sort of the app creation for your brand, but also the notion of using apps as media and using other apps to reach your customer. So, with that, I actually want to start a bit differently because if you've been to more than one of these conferences, and I'm sure just about everyone in the audience has, we all kind of throw around the same buzzwords and stats, and we thought maybe we shouldn't do that. So I wanted to start a little bit differently and throw out a question. Is there one topic that supports this overall arching topic here that you guys think isn't getting the attention it deserves as it relates to mobile strategies? And Stuart, I thought you had some great examples when we spoke last week.
Sorry. Can you hear me? I'm not sure what my great thoughts were I had when we spoke last week, but I'll try to conjure them. I guess the one thing we're talking about a little bit that I've seen is just in general is people or brands for marketing an app, or we get a lot of like, I want to market an app, and I think that one of the big missed opportunities is really looking at app usage and looking at the apps that have all this, thinking about apps as media. And rather than thinking about build first, I'm going to build this app, really looking at your customer base.
Hey Stuart,
everyone
back here wants to hear what you're saying, but they can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
There you go.
All right, so I was going to have the feedback. I was just saying, one of the big opportunities.
The problem with the mic.
Fix this.
I can yell.
Yes, switch it loud. You're going to take my mic.
Yeah.
How's this?
Hold on. I'm here.
There you go.
Start from the beginning.
Thank you.
Hello? All right, that's better. So what I was saying is I think one of the big opportunities that we see is a lot of marketers come to us and think, I need to build an app in order to take advantage of this growth in app usage and the amount of time that customers spend in apps. And one of the things that we really encourage clients to do is think about apps as media properties. And think about using apps as a way to reach your audience and look at who has an app or which apps might be used by your audience and think about ways which you can kind of integrate into those apps rather than sort of build and then have to put together a big plan to kind of distribute your own app. Not that there's not opportunity to do that, but I think one of the missed opportunities is to think about what apps are my customers using today and how do I integrate and add value to those experiences.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the first assumption that brands have is not only do I need to build a mobile web experience, but I need to build a mobile application. And my first question for the brands that I ever see is why? Why would you spend a couple $100,000 building an app that people may not use? I think every conversation that I've been a part of for my client, 99% of the time, another app already exists with a solid user base, or a few apps exist of similar nature. So let's think of those applications as a canvas, and how do we integrate our brands and create a meaningful solution versus creating another application that's similar to 3, 5, 7 others, when we know that a lot of consumers are using the same type of utility applications. There's so many apps out there that people download, forget about, and then ultimately delete. So a big conversation that came up when we were talking was focusing more on app integration versus brands building out yet another app.
Yeah, I totally agree that a lot of brands just they get the sort of the look in their eye. They're focused on building an app, and they think it's just going to roll up to the CMO and be this great shiny object, but in reality, it ends up being just a turd, for lack of a better word. And then the problem is that building the app is expensive, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, because then you need to drive people to download it, to use it, and that becomes a really expensive slippery slope. You can spend the same amount of money promoting the app, getting people to download it, to do promoted downloads or incentivized downloads, and you'll be told, oh, we can acquire people for 95 cents or $1, and then when you really start digging into the data and looking at the daily and the monthly active users, the DAUs and MAUs, you realize that they downloaded it once, they used it once, and they've never used it again. So your actual cost of customer acquisition is like triple what you thought it would be. So I think that's it's a fool's errand to go and build an app for a brand. And on top of that, the concept of partnering with an existing app that has a really rich customer daily active user base is not only great, but they've probably figured out what the one or two unique, really killer aspects or features of that app is, because you can build an app that has lots of features like a Swiss Army knife, but if no one's going to use any of them, you've wasted your money. And so there's a reason why specific apps perform really well. If you talk to the app store, they'll tell you, just have one killer feature. And it's really hard to create that one killer feature, and that's what drives that daily usage.
I think one thing to add on to that that's really key is you can build a great app, but if you don't have money to support it, who cares? Because who's going to know about it? And I can admit, for my client Procter & Gamble, we built this phenomenal application for one of our hair care products that really tapped into the Hispanic consumer, where the shampoo and conditioner bottles didn't translate well in Spanish. We created an augmented reality app, spent a lot of time scanning all the products. Well, the brand cut dollars, so there was no money to promote it, so it resulted in 2,000 downloads and immediate deletion. So without the promotion, there's no point.
Let's touch on that a second. So let's assume we've talked folks off the ledge and convinced those that shouldn't create the app not to do it, but a lot of the bigger brands are going to have that branded app. And as you said, you've got to make sure it gets distributed. So how do you guys think about getting the distribution in the first place? And then the follow-up question to that would be, how do you get re-engagement going, and what strategies are you guys finding successful?
Well, I think one of the pieces is first start with the insight. What's the consumer insight? Right? Why do they need this? Why do we think they need this? Why can we make them want it? And a lot of people really don't do that. So, for example, building if you're a foods company, building an app all about your brand's recipes, well, that's just silly. You as a single brand are never going to have more recipes than Epicurious or all recipes. And by the way, those folks have spent a lot of money on going and looking at user design and user flow. Right? And in mobile, user design, UX, is probably 10x more important than it is on the web. You have fewer pixels to use, and those folks have done it well. So in terms of, looking at the investment, what is the feature? What is the killer aspect of our app that people are going to, want to come back for and be habituated to? Because without that, you're literally wasting your money.
I would say kind of back to, should I build an app, should I not build an app? I go back a little bit to kind of microsite strategy. People would come to me a number of years ago and say, I need a microsite. And the idea was build a microsite and spend a bunch of money driving on banners trying to drive traffic to it. Much more effective strategy when you're talking about digital media is actually go out where the consumer's spending time and integrate what you're doing. I think for the app, the biggest mistake I see is that marketers, they only look at the phone. Right? So they think about an app and they think about how can I get on the phone, how can I get screen real estate on the phone. And the screen real estate on the phone is really, really small. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. I have, especially as my eyesight gets worse and worse. But all around you, when you're in the real world, like sitting in this room, the phone is an interaction device, right? So the biggest missed opportunity we see is that marketers don't look at what their customers are doing and when they have their phone, whether they're going to the store or checking into a hotel or going to an airport or whatever it is, and thinking about that phone as kind of an interaction device and thinking about opportunities to market the app by using the phone as an interaction device. So a good example that we did for Marriott, we marketed their app. We did a bunch of different things all through the travel room, but the most successful thing that we did was actually turn the room key which you all probably have if you stay here. You get a plastic room key that they basically throw away when they lose them or reuse. And we just put a simple QR code and SMS message on it. Very low cost, very cheap, and talk about right time, right place, right? Somebody checking into a hotel can scan it, get the app immediately. So I think that's what I would encourage people to do, is think about that phone as a device that you use to interact with the real world, and where are those intersections that you can use to market your content.
Yeah, I think the other piece is your brand is not first, your brand's second. That's the biggest mistake that marketers make when you're developing an application, or just whenever you're approaching the platform. It's what's the consumer experience that you're trying to create? How are you going to engage the consumer and keep them coming back? And a lot of people think it's the brand alone. When you look at the successful applications, I mean, when you talk about Facebook, it's not Facebook the brand that people keep coming back. It's the experiences that are created within that application. You know, we finally launched one of our first P&G apps in a long time for Dreft. And it's not about Dreft, the brand. It's about the application documents the first 365 days of a newborn's life. So you think about first-time parents or even second, third child. It's not about Dreft. It's about documenting every day for 365 days, hitting those milestones. That's something that a consumer's going to come back to because you're tapping into that insight of documentation. They want to capture this experience. It's not about a brand. The brand's just there bringing you that. And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up a bit and where applications do fail because it's brands first, experience consumers second. And it really should be flipped.
That's actually a really good point. If you look at the stats recently in terms of Facebook mobile, right? On average, people are going and checking their status feed 15 times a day, right? They're not going to, for something specific from Facebook, they're going to see data from their friends, right? And in the case of your app, it's what's the utility value of that, right? So the phone is a helper. It's something to get my day done. And going back to my earlier comment about apps being horrible, look at what a brand like Charmin has done. Right, years ago, probably 4 years ago, they created an app called Sit or Squat, right? And it makes sense for Charmin to do that, right? But it's the utility value of this app that knows all of the best and worst public toilets in any city. So if you have this app out and you gotta go, you pull the app up and it says, well, no, go 3 blocks down. There is a really clean public restroom in this place. Right? So it's less about the brand, it's more about the utility of what you're trying to do, right? So that app, that's a killer feature, right? So the insight from that is what made that app literally, grow so fast, so organically, that they could have never done that through paid advertising. And in fact, I don't think they ever really did any advertising with that app.
I can actually speak to it just because Procter & Gamble is my client, or see the mobile. This is actually the first year that we're looking to put media support behind that application. When I first heard the concept of the app, I laughed. I was like, public toilet application. And then you realize, that's pretty useful, especially, when you see some of the public restrooms. And it just took off, and this is the first year where it's not even a revamping of the application. We should actually put some more support behind this because we've noticed that consumers are using this over and over again. It's not a one-time open done. It's a continue to revisit.
I've had the app on my phone for probably 5 years. Now, do I use it every day? No. But the fact that it's there in the association with the brand is fantastic. They're not saying that, hey, you've got to use our app. We've got the best, toilet paper in the world. They don't care about that. That's the relationship with the brand and the fact that the brand is actually helping you solve a problem. I mean, I think this year actually on a flight, I saw the first promotion on GoGo Wireless, right? The fact that they were giving me, I think, free internet access during the flight, it just happened to be sponsored by Charmin, brought that back again, and I'll probably use the app next week.
So I do want to switch gears to the other side of the coin here in terms of apps as media, and I think these are some great examples with some branded apps. And I said I wasn't going to bore everyone with the hottest stats, but there's one that jumped out. Juniper Research just reported that in-app advertising is set to explode. It's $3.5 billion was spent in 2013, and by 2018 it's going to go to $17 billion. So clearly there's huge excitement about that in-app experience. That's where consumers just spend their attention. Free to play is kind of the business model that's taken off. And yet, banner ads are kind of a pain in the ass. They're interruptive, they're annoying, and I haven't met anyone on the planet who says they like them. So, how are you guys thinking about this? And do you agree with sort of this groundswell that in-app advertising is going to be something that we should all be paying attention to?
Yes and no, and I think it comes back to my thought when approaching this space is, what is the objective and what's the experience I'm trying to create for the consumer? Like I always say, my biggest fear with mobile is people are going to resort to it as a banner. Yes, that's one method of delivery, but I think, particularly with in-app, you have, I said before, I was looking at it as a canvas, and how can you bring this experience to life versus focusing on how do I cram so much in this little bitty app unit? And that's again where you've seen people fail and people succeed. And yes, a large majority of our experiences are in-app, whether it's IAD or with some of the reward incentivized baby companies. It just allows for us to create a much richer and deeper experience for the consumer. So I think that's where you do see a lot of dollars being pumped into in-app advertising.
I would say that I'm not a big fan of banners. I've been doing this a long time. I don't think they're hugely effective. I think they're even less effective on a phone. So I think it's going to have to be something that is akin to tighter integration with apps. And really, if you look at something like TripIt, I don't know if people here use TripIt. How many TripIt users? If I look at TripIt and I say, okay, I could buy a little banner there on TripIt, and that would be interesting, and I'd probably reach a right audience, but I'm not sure how much they'd notice what I was doing. But if I partnered with TripIt and said that anytime my flight is canceled, I want to get a notification from one of these brands, and I want them to pre-book a hotel room for me in that city, how many people might sign up for that with a brand that you like? I do that. That's valuable, right? So more difficult to scale, obviously. But again, if you take the approach of, okay, I'm going to go to an app that has a very large user base, so I'm going to address that scale issue through this app's user base, and then I'm going to build some type of service into their ad or into their app. I think that's a much more effective way to kind of build reach and build positive brand equity.
This whole concept of back to banners, but native. I mean, I think what native really is being really thoughtful about how you buy, right, and where you put it, and valuable, right? So, I was just literally in Foursquare the other day and checked in, and an ad came up for Hotel Tonight. Really thoughtful, really smart, versus, and I think, people love to make fun of Foursquare for how long it's taking them to build a scalable model, but their first focus and the priority is the user experience. And so they're making brands, and they're making their sales team, and they're making their product team think a lot more critically about the product and where ads go in a very thoughtful and smart way, versus just slapping an ad in there. I've seen lots of different apps with horrible ad experiences because you're just putting a banner in and put a banner in to try and monetize this. And it doesn't really make sense. It makes the user experience really crappy. And quite honestly, if you're the app, you're looking at your daily active users. And if you keep on having a really bad experience with poorly placed banners, your daily active users are going to go down. So this whole concept of yes, we need to put ads in, we need to find a way to put banners in. Is it a banner, or is it something akin to a banner, or is it something we're going to call native, which eventually I think is just going to be native is going to go away. But it's very different than how you apply buying across a variety of sites and slapping banners up. You have to be much more thoughtful with the mobile.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think banners strike me as incredibly lazy. Every communication or technological medium since the beginning of time has spawned new forms of advertising, and we kind of slapped these banners on. And you said, well, boy, it either isn't working or pissing off consumers. And yet there are other ways to integrate advertising into some of these experiences, whether it's a deep integration that someone might call native, or even video and rich media seem to be things that are primed for growth. And are you guys having those conversations with your clients as well?
Yes.
So how do you think about, again, another question that I think comes up a lot is folks like you are either controlling or influencing a lot of the spending and purse strings. And mobile has been kind of, relegated to this % of digital, and now, of course, that's probably changing a bit. But how do you guys, think about budget allocation as consumers are spending so much more time with smartphones and tablets?
I think we've seen a big change in the last year from kind of experimental ad spend and kind of portioning off a portion of the digital budget to kind of cover mobile has been a pretty common strategy. And then I think over the last year what we've seen is advertisers or clients have started really reassessing, based on the data, frankly. We were talking before, some of our clients, they have mobile email open rates upwards of 60%. So, their customers are mobile. So I think we're seeing more and more people start to look at it. Forget about like online, offline, mobile, desktop, just where are my consumers spending time? Where are they getting information from? How are they getting information that informs their opinions about things? And then using that to kind of inform spend. So we've seen a lot more, I've been doing this for a while, it's a lot easier now to get people to shake loose money for mobile than it was when I was originally trying to get people to shake loose money for internet. So.
Turn this mic on. There we go. I think that's exactly it. I think going back to when digital started taking dollars away from other places, you don't do digital for the sake of doing digital, right? You do it because it works. You do it based on the consumer insight where the eyeballs are. So just to go and do mobile because everyone's going there, I think is not right. And I think marketers are getting a little smarter about that as well. So really focusing on doing it because it has results and it's going to speak to your audience and it's where your audience is, especially P&G, right? How consumers are using the brands while they're in the aisle, right? What are you doing to have that experience when they're using their phone as a utility?
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, it's screens and data. I don't give a crap if you're saying desktop, mobile, tablet, whatever you want to call it, it's screens and data, bottom line. And, my team that exists, it's, I think we're the largest mobile AOR that actually touches a piece of business. And that's only because mobile was so isolated before. And, I'll touch on internal systems which prevent, other complications, but that model's not going to exist. Every single person who touches Procter & Gamble business is planning all screens. They're activating against all screens. There isn't this, well, here's mobile. Yes, we have mobile experts because you need to have an overall expert that's analyzing and knowing the latest technologies. They're not even going to scratch it. It's not even mobile. It's emerging media. It was desktop like 5-6 years ago. It's mobile yesterday. It's emerging media. And so you need those folks who are, analyzing and understanding the complexities and how brands need to approach. But it's screens and data. Everybody's touching mobile, everybody's planning and activating it all. I mean, there are the challenges that people want to talk about, which unfortunately I have to talk about daily, is lack of ROI. And even though we have this whole model of fluidity and cross-platform execution, there are historical tools when you get a company like P&G, who's over 175 years old, that are rooted in silos, where budgets operate separately. So that is a big hindrance that we're working to overcome, but for all intents and purposes, it's data and screens. It's not mobile, desktop.
And Erin, I thought you had some interesting feedback on the ROI topic when we spoke last week, which was, don't let this, lack of perfect ROI paralyze you. That you can wait for nirvana and perfection, but if you do that, you're going to be missing out. So you kind of like have this jump-in approach.
Yeah, I mean, there are days that I'm the most frustrated woman in the world, and I'm probably very grouchy because of ROI discussion. I can put so many consumer trends reports. I can say, here's where eyeballs are, here's how we should follow them, here's how we need to approach the space as a whole. And my client's on board. Yes, we need to go. We need to continue pumping dollars. Then 2 days later, it's, well, we don't have proven ROI. Well, unless you make some big bets and have consistency in spend, consistency in content development, and consistently approach this platform, you're never going to get ROI. Hate to break it to you, but you have to take a risk and you have to put those dollars out there. That's the only way that you're going to get ROI data that's going to help inform decisions. So, when you look at P&G, there's so many brands that we touch. Some brands are very lean forward and are just placing big bets in mobile, knowing in the long term it's going to pay out, whether it is through an MMM system or when you think about creating this in-store experience or even in-home experience, that's instant purchase data that you have right there. But it does take a leap of faith, and you do have a challenge where some clients want that ROI when it does not exist.
I think the other thing is a lot of, I've been on the CPG side as well, and a lot of the tools that, a company like P&G or when I was at Del Monte Foods have, they use an antiquated system, right? They use bases. How many people here have used bases to try and do your forecasting or to do your ROI analysis? Bases, it doesn't understand digital, let alone it's TV, right? It's TV and print. So you, as an agency person or a brand, you've got to build a story. Like, just as it's important to tell a really good story in a 30-second spot or even creative, you need to tell a story from a data perspective. If you can't go and build a story that says how all of these things sort of ladder up to, the ROI that you're going to get from your investment, not your spend, but your investment over the next 12, 18 months, you're failing as an agency person in leading your client. And I think a lot of it happens today because people look at the very short term, like, oh, we can get ROI in this in 6 weeks. No, you can't. It's not going to happen. Tell me what the story is, because to your point, it may not just be how people are interacting within the app or clicking on the banners. It's part of a shopper marketing program that may have led to an action in the aisle or getting people to the store. So what are all of these pieces together that build the story to ROI?
It's just one more thought on that. I would say, again, when I talk to clients, I usually say, if I could take you back in time to 1994, how would you approach your internet, your web strategy differently? Would you be more aggressive or less aggressive? Show of hands, how many people would be more aggressive? Right? I remember sitting down talking to my clients, and somebody wants to buy all the time. So I would probably say that the ROI issue is a challenge for sure. There are ways that you can get a lot of proxies, whether it's location data, mobile coupons, if you're doing more direct type of marketing. On the branding thing, you can do a lot of surveying and things like that. Data's not 100% there, but I think that fortune favors the bold.
So this sort of lends to a nice segue to another question I had for you all, which is that the notion of action in the aisle kind of gets down to exactly what you guys want as marketers. You want that action in the aisle or in the hotel or whatever it might be. And so there is this notion of the consumer taking the action versus the CPM model, where you're getting a view, an impression, and you're going to try to back out an ROI out of that. So there seems to be a bit of a groundswell that the notion of consumer choice and engagement are really being paid attention to now versus just this pure CPM discussion around impressions. And I'm seeing some heads nod, so hopefully that's...
Well, I think you said it, right? We took a model from the print world and kind of forced it on the web. Yeah. And, full disclosure, my company did that. Cha-Chen, you're in here somewhere, right? And I think that, it is going to take something different than that. And I think that if you look at digital media as a whole, it is consumer initiated. And the most successful example out there, the biggest profit maker in digital media, Google, is entirely consumer initiated for the most part, right? Moving away from that a little bit with things like Google now. But I think that, you're going to have always this kind of pull-based marketing when it concerns digital. There's too many choices, too many filters. I just don't think a push-based model can work.
Yeah, the CPM model worked and still works, right? It's not going away anytime soon, but as that experience journey changes, right? It's no longer just looking at a TV ad or a print ad or going to a website. It's all of these different pieces that you engage with your consumers throughout the day, right? How do you build a model for that, or what's going to be the ultimate term we apply to, the three-letter term we apply to that? No one knows as of yet, but that is changing because how the consumer journey looks today is very different than it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, against my will, of course, to talk about CPMs, inflations, TRPs, GRPs, any other T term that I don't understand, and I really just want to look away. Because when you think about, as I said before, emerging media, which right now is being driven by mobility, we have the opportunity to redefine the path to purchase. I may not need to go from awareness to engagement, deeper down consideration, purchase, advocacy. That model is going to be so intertwined when you think about something like iBeacon, which is, brought to life through a passport application. I can engage a consumer in source. They may have heard of, Bounty or Pleasant Sits, but if I can deliver that message the second they walk in the store and deliver something meaningful, such as a coupon or, whatever it may be, I can probably cut out engagement consideration, drive them straight to purchase. Because if you get some people, like my parents' generation, my mom is not a brave royalist, she cares about the coupons. Like the woman has a lot of coupons, as I'm sure a lot of parents do, and they flip through, and if you can deliver that experience on the phone, who cares about engagement consideration? And it's just getting people to avoid traditional systems, avoid traditional acronyms on how you approach media, and you don't need to have 5, 6, 25 experiments, you need to have one test where you prove success. Even if it's not successful, you take your learnings and get another test in the books. All it takes is one, and then people start following.
Let alone that, right now we've talked a lot about, the device and the apps and ads within the environment. But flip that around from a retailer perspective, and this day is coming very soon, right? With the minute you walk into a store, right, you're going to get on a Walmart Wi-Fi network or a Costco or some other network, and they're going to control that experience, and that's going to become part of your shopper marketing mix. Is what information is delivered to the device, that's pushed to the device from that environment that you're in. That again, it's reiterated, it's iterated. It's going through iterations of how that cycle is going to work. It's not just because you're on Verizon or AT&T Security, you're going to get this ad. We're going to push ads to you as part of the overall consumer journey. That is starting to happen, and that's going to shift a ton. And that starts to move away from the CPM model. That starts to go more towards an engagement model.
Yeah, when you think about applications, everybody should download a PayPal application. Whether certain functionalities that we've heard about exist now, they will exist in the future. And when you walk into a store, who cares about sales associates? They're no longer going to exist. Speaking about how banners unimportant. Mobile advertising is not going to exist in a banner. It's going to be triggered when you walk in the store, and they're going to know, okay, you've picked up shampoo, conditioner. Why don't you go over and, here's a hairbrush that's on sale. Your message is going to be delivered based on what you're picking up in store, based on your actual actions. It's going to be immediate, and it's going to be based on location. That's where messaging is going, and that's where you can see the power of applications, because this experience is brought to life in applications.
So totally agree with you, but how do we get consumers and the public comfortable with this? And we talked a little bit backstage about kind of the creepy factor, and they're tracking me. As an industry, we've got a big opportunity ahead of us, but how do we make sure we don't sort of snuff it?
I don't think consumers are all that freaked out by it. I think we as marketers tend to speak in hyperbole in how much they're freaked out.
Yeah, let's be honest. I'm lazy. Make this stuff easy for me. When I go to a store, and based on what I'm picking up, send me stuff and tell me stuff that I need. Make it easy. We as a consumer like things made easy for us. I'm sure there's some who don't, but overall, making the consumer experience easier. It's just intuitive.
I think the piece is adding value. If I walk into a store and you happen to know that I'm in an aisle and you say, by the way, 5 feet down the aisle there's a special offer on X product, you're making my life a little bit easier. I'm like, I didn't know that. I'm going to try that. I'm interested. So you're creating value out of the utility.
I think we did talk about this a little bit. I think the value exchange is part of it, right? If I'm getting something valuable, I tend to be a little less concerned about what I'm giving up. I think we still need to be very upfront, though, as marketers. We haven't always done this, frankly, about what we're doing and why we're collecting certain types of data and giving people really simple ways to opt out of it. Because ultimately, if you're doing this right, I go back to the example, the TripIt example with the Marriott integration. Like, I want that hotel room pre-booked for me, right? Because I don't want to spend the night at the airport. That's hugely valuable. So if you're going to use my location and my status and maybe even my credit card data stored somewhere to do that for me, like that's a deal. Anybody here spent the night on the floor in an airport? I'll take that deal all day long. So I think it's like you gotta really look at like what is that value exchange. Be honest with consumers. Be upfront with them and give them a real easy way to get out of it if they don't want to do it. I think if we get creepy and start popping up banners all over the place on people's phones, and I'm not sure that people really want that.
Yeah, again, I clearly agree with that. If the folks don't understand about Tapjoy, we're all about sort of a consumer opt-in model where consumers actually raise their hand and request the ads. And what we find is that they then feel better about the brand because, in fact, the brand goes from being just an advertiser to a sponsor of the content that this consumer loves. And so the consumer feels really good about those advertisers that make that happen.
Yeah, I think, again, it's think about what's the end user experience? Are you making that experience better for them? Right? Because at the end of the day, that value exchange, if you're providing that value, people will engage and they're not going to be freaked out. They're actually going to want it versus push it away.
So I thought you had a great example that you passed along from it was the Japan Tourist Award.
The post from Japan, people probably seen that, right? Have we seen the post from Japan? Not, I would encourage you to go on YouTube. We didn't do this, I wish we had. It's a very good example of app marketing where the app made a lot of sense. I know we started off by saying brands shouldn't build apps or shouldn't always build apps. So this is an example of Japan post-earthquake where they wanted to get tourism back on track. And what they did is they built an app for tourists that allowed people access to their network while in Japan traveling through this app to be able to share photos, right? So when people travel, they take photos, they love to share them. One of the problems if you travel overseas, you'll know is that data can be crushingly expensive, as I've found out the hard way. And what they did with Japan Post was they gave you the ability to download this app. It gave you the ability to post photos to your Facebook profile in exchange for free minutes of airtime that you could then use to look for things like restaurants or directions, whatever it was. To me, that's an example where it might have made sense for them to build an app. Where I don't think you want to dismiss it. You want to look at it and say, well, what's the consumer doing? What kind of value proposition do we have? Is there competition? You talked about are there other apps that already do this better? Maybe that would be a better partnering strategy. But in this case, really, really simple but elegant example of how you create value through an app.
So I think we're going to be butting up against our time here. I'm not sure. Do you want to take some questions?
Can I ask a question? Can I get a mic, please? I got a question. And this actually, Peter, it's part to you. I know those lights are blinding right now. Come on, there's a stars today. And it's part to the panel, I was talking to some people in the green room, and as mobile really kind of evolves in 2014, which hits that pivot point, are you guys seeing, or are your clients seeing a clear differentiation point between brand and performance, or are you seeing them continually merging together? I call it kind of brand demand, but I'm just curious, and I'm actually curious about all of you, so.
I would say we're encouraging our clients to look at everything as performance. And I don't mean that in the sense that everything is direct marketing. I just mean that you can, with the amount of data that's available today through digital specifically, which is one of the key differentiators, I think, between sort of traditional and digital, is that the digital throws off a data trick. You can start to connect the dots on what's working and what's not working, and you should be looking at your brand efforts and your awareness building efforts on a performance basis, in my opinion.
Totally agree with that. It's not just, it's building that story, right? So if you have an app, it's where are they spending the time, how many people are coming back on a daily basis, to how many people are engaging in a banner ad that may be, on a mobile device. So you have to go and build that story across devices and across different types of data points.
I think when you approach screens, there's a whole different way that you should approach performance, because a lot of the measurements that are available to screens were not available to more of your traditional points. Everybody talks about pay, don't, and earn, and I think a lot of people talk about it, but don't know how to apply it or measure it. When you particularly talk about mobility, you can instantly measure earned amplification. You can see how many people are socializing your messaging, how many people are passing along, whether it's a coupon or a video. So there's a whole nother era of measurement that people are starting to define. I don't think anybody's really gotten there, but there's a whole different platform of measurement versus here's how many eyeballs saw this ad.
Yeah, I would just sort of echo all of that. And I've been at Tapjoy about 2 years now, and I think back sort of those early days, a long time in mobile years. But there's been a huge change in just the understanding and appreciation of mobile in general, but also in what some of the ROI that we can bring to bear in terms of performance advertising and consumer engagement. I think the fact that there are now specialists and agencies too that are just sort of diving on this stuff, they're a very educated group that understand how this all works.
So the RFPs that you guys get from all the agencies and brands, they're more on the performance side or more on the branding side, or is it a hybrid?
It's definitely a hybrid for sure from us. We've grown our business on the brand side exponentially, but we still do big business with folks that are looking for very specific performance objectives.
Okay. And now I know you guys talked about utility, and I really believe, I'm a big proponent of data that drives utility, right? In terms of if I'm looking for a car, because I can buy a new car, send me a lease offer for an SUV or for whatever type of car I am in my market to make my life easier. Kind of like a hotel example, right? So I'm a big fan of that. But, and I just spoke at a bunch of panels in London, San Francisco on data and privacy. There seems to be a part of the audience that is kind of nervous, right? But then they have to understand the concept of value exchange for content. Content is not free, right? To produce content, whether it's video, text, whatever, someone has to pay for it. And the model for content consumption is typically either subscription, right? Pay per use, download, or advertising, which is going to be free. And the less relevant the ad is, the less relevant the ad is, the more you get. The more relevant, the higher CPM, the less advertising, right? It's kind of weird equation. I'm curious, out of the audience, because you guys are obviously early adopters, how many of you would prefer to give up some personal data information, right, in a privacy-controlled environment to get relevant advertising? Could you please raise your hands? All right, that's looking good. How many say, no, I don't want to give you any info, just send me that punch the monkey ad. I saw my hand over there. You want to punch the monkey ad? Okay, all right, good, all right. So why don't we go to the audience now for questions? Any questions from the audience? I'm looking. You're going to have to raise a high Clark. Oh, I see one over there. Hang on 1 second. Okay, could you please state your name and where you are from?
Hi, I'm Brandon at Moby. I had a question. One of the first things you talked about was should brands even consider building an app? And I think the answer was no in a lot of cases. Should those brands even consider rich media ads that kind of look and feel like an app to achieve that end?
Yeah, I mean, I think it ultimately goes to objective. I mean, you should also think, even if your brand doesn't even have a mobile web experience or whatever you're trying to build out in an app, if it can be accomplished in rich media, absolutely. Save your time and money and pump those dollars into actually socializing your message versus building something that people may not see if you don't have the dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can identify, one or multiple app environments where your consumers spending their time, find ways to surround them within that environment, whether that's a rich ad or whether that's a native ad or a banner. Do it.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't so much don't build an app, because I have clients who do build apps, and that makes sense. I think that it's that, think about your business objective. What are you trying to do by building this app? And then step back a little bit and say, are there other ways I can achieve that through maybe others' apps or other types of mobile marketing, not just by building my own app, just to clarify that kind of point of view.
Okay, great panel, guys. Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause. Thank you. We got just a couple of housekeeping. We've added chairs here, there, everywhere.